Hey everybody, Chad Lefevre here from the Most Important Conversations, TMICglobal.com. Today I want to talk to you about the near win. The near win is a concept that I came up with a number of years ago when I was doing some work with some behavioral scientists and some neuroscientists in the tech space. Essentially what the near win is how our brain keeps us addicted to failure. All of you, myself included, if we don't do the work and put in extra effort, we will default to a being addicted to failure state. Now that sounds really dramatic. I'm using words addiction. I'm saying that people are addicted to failure. So what does this mean? Let's unpack the near win today. Interestingly enough, it was people who were working on slot machines, digital slot machines, that I learned this from. And there's this experience that all of us have, it's just the way that our brain works. Is say you're playing a slot machine, if you can imagine the three slots, right? So a total loss in a slot machine is when none of the slots line up. A win is obviously when all three of the slots line up. And a near loss or a near win is when two of the slots line up, but the third one doesn't quite line up. It almost does, but you can see it there. And because you can see it there, it sends this jolt of dopamine through your brain, and it's exciting. It's you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I almost won. I was right there. I almost had it. And so this reward system of dopamine in the brain, when we experience a near win, is what keeps us pumping money into the machine, because it's the possibility, right? It feeds that part of our brain where there's hope in the future, but it hasn't arrived yet. The success hasn't arrived yet, but it could still exist in the future. When I first heard about this as a concept in terms of how the brain works, I thought it was fascinating, because suddenly I realized that the near win doesn't just happen in casinos. The near win is actually a mechanism and function of our brain, that our brain is neurochemically rewarding us for almost winning behavior. Think about it. You didn't win, you almost won. When people are playing slot machines and they win, half the time they just cash out and leave, and they go to the pool, or they go get a drink, or go for dinner, or whatever. They don't stay engaged. But what hit me with this is that the near win mechanism, the dopamine feeder system in the brain that keeps us engaged in almost winning behavior with the potential possibility of a potential win, doesn't just happen in casinos. It happens all throughout our life. It's the reason you have conference junkies. How many of you have sought out to improve something in your life? I mean, the self-help, personal growth, human potential, transformational industry, whatever you want to call it, they're all synonyms of the same thing, is $100 billion a year industry that exists because people want to change something about themselves. They want to evolve. They want to improve. I mean, this is classic Maslow's pyramid stuff. That we want to get to the top of the pyramid of self-actualization. But for some reason, less than 2% of people ever accomplish some level of self-actualization, despite $100 billion annually a year in all of the combined different topics that constitute personal growth, self-help, wellness, transformation, all of this stuff. Despite all of that money, less than 2%. There was a study that was done a number of years ago, and it was the study that sealed the deal for me in terms of realizing that the near win is the thing. It is the thing that if you do not get a handle on this, it doesn't matter how much you want to change in your life. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how many conferences you go to, how many books you read. Unless you handle what's at the source of the near win, you will not attain the things that you want to. So this study was a study of heart attack patients. And what it found, so these heart attack patients were told, if you do not make substantive lifestyle change to your diet, to your sleep, to your exercise, statistically within 5 years, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to have another heart attack, or you're going to die. Okay, those are really the options after someone's had a heart attack if they don't make lifestyle change. In this study, and I want you to listen to this because it blew my mind. Okay, your very life is at risk. In this study, less than 10% of heart attack patients made any lifestyle change whatsoever. Nothing. Only 10% or under made any change. That means 90+% did nothing. They did nothing. And it hit me in that moment, okay, if my life is not motivation enough to make basic lifestyle change, we're not talking a lot, go for a walk, start exercising, change your diet, explore, with your doctor and health professionals what options you have, but do something different, because whatever you've done got you to that point of the heart attack. If your own life is not motivation enough for you to make minimal basic changes, forget about it. None of the stuff that you're spending gobs of money on, a better relationship, starting a business, succeeding at work, starting your own business, whatever, none of that is going to pay off. It's not going to work. You're going to get insights. You're going to get motivated. You're going to high five. You're going to get oxytocin and dopamine hits. You're going to maybe walk on coals and do all the things that we all know happen at these peak experience transformational events. And I'm not making those events wrong. We need inspiration. We need motivation. It's important because it kind of spurs us along. But if you don't solve what's going on with the near win, none of it matters. You're wasting your money. You're wasting your time. You'd be better off just doing what you're always doing and not even bother trying. Now, I'm not saying that to disappoint or dissuade you from trying anything. I'm saying let's get the near win handled. So at TMIC, in our program, Whole Life Architecture, we deal specifically with this issue. We call Whole Life Architecture the After the Hype program. What do I mean by that? After you've gone to the workshops, after you've gone to the conferences, after you've spent the money, got the dopamine hit, got the oxytocin hit, high five, got a swack of business cards, leave with a bag of books, made all these new friends, you feel alive, you feel high, you're going to change your life, everything is about to change. You go home to the same architecture and environment that made you want to go to the conference in the first place. The same architecture and environment that reinforced the habitual way of living that was antithetical and not what you wanted to create for yourself. And don't even get me started on the creativity side. We deal with that too. There's some other videos that we've been putting out on the power of creativity and how we've all been deconditioned so that we don't know how to think creatively anymore. But that's a separate video. Coming back to the near win, if you do not learn the ways of short-circuiting the near win. Now, why does the near win happen? Let's just pause on this for a second. Our brain needs safety, security, and safety and security for our brain means predictability. If I go to a conference to learn something new, I want to make a change in my life so that I can adopt those new behaviors and experience the change in my life, which I assume is going to make my life better, whether it's health, relationships, business, making money, whatever the case is. Those are the drivers. Those are the things that make me want to go to these conferences in the first place, right? Is this desire to change. Now, here's the thing. The brain needs predictability, safety, security. Any change subconsciously is going to be interpreted by your brain as the threat. Oh my gosh, they're going to do something new. Like the heart attack patients. Any change, don't eat the cheeseburgers anymore. Start eating salads as a very simple example. And remember, less than 10% made any change. That means 90+% of these patients made no change. They even changed to eating a salad. Simple. Not that that would prevent your heart attack in and of itself, but like no change. But your brain is like, if I'm your brain, it's like, listen, you've been eating cheeseburgers for 30, 40 years. You're still alive. You're fine. You don't have to make any change. Who cares what they're saying? They don't know what they're talking about, And I know that's not necessarily the inner dialogue, but if your brain had a persona or a personality, it wants to dissuade you at all costs from making any change, adopting any new behaviors. Not going to happen. So what the brain does is it neurochemically rewards us. We get a dopamine hit. You're at the conference, you got the books, you're in the bookstore line, you're seeking out new information, maybe you've got a coach, whatever. Your brain is interpreting your attempt to gather new information, get inspired, get motivated, and your idea of I'm going to make a change. Your brain interprets that as, hold my beer, this is scary. There's a security threat happening. This person actually is going to try and change. So it neurochemically rewards us. We get the pleasure payoff to the brain, and guess what happens? Nothing. We take no new action. We take no new action because we already got the payoff. We already feel good. This is why in the self-help world, there's an old joke that most self-help books become shelf help. No one reads them. No one reads them because by the time you've brought the book home, you're already feeling great. And you go back to the same architecture and environment that you left to go to the conference or the workshop or whatever. And you go back and you slide right into habit, but you feel good this time. So you're not present to and aware of the angst that made you go there in the first place until 3 months, 6 months down the road. Gosh, I really got to make a change. And so you go book another conference, book another coach, buy another book, buy an online course, and the cycle continues. Consider $100 billion a year in the personal growth, self-help, personal development, transformation, wellness space, etc. Spent. Less than 2% of people ever make a change, ever stick with a program long enough to rewire the brain and overwhelm the near win at work. That means $98 billion is wasted every year. It goes nowhere. Accomplishes nothing. So the near win is the thing to address. And our whole life architecture program, what I was saying a few minutes ago, is an after the hype program. After you've gotten inspired, after you've gotten motivated by going to these workshops, taking these courses, going to these conferences, high-fiving, meeting people, great networking, all of that's great. But then you come back to your house, and now what? There's work to do. The only way you're going to overcome the near win is by reorientating your relationship to effort, is by doing the work in a community setting with accountability structures, doing it consistently, and this comes back to creativity, learning how to think creatively again to create the new you that you need to become. Yes, maybe you'll use some of the tools and the things that you learned at the workshop or the conference, but creativity, community, accountability, and a reorientating of your relationship to effort, these are the things you need in order to overwhelm and overcome the influence and the effect of the near win, which is keeping you addicted to failure. We're going to wrap up with where I started. I said all of us are addicted to failure in our life until we're not. What do I mean by that? The near win assures that you will make little to no change in any of the things that you want to succeed at transforming in your life. It neurochemically pays you off with a pleasure reward system so that you take no action. What is that pleasure reward system? We become addicted to it. This is why we get conference junkies, people who go over and over and over and over, but nothing's changing in their life. They are addicted to the failure to integrate any of the information that they may have learned because the near win is at work. And so it presents itself as almost succeeding in love, almost succeeding in business, almost succeeding at making all of the money that you want to make, and any of the other goals that you may have. You almost succeed most of the time. Now, who wants to live like that? Not many people. This is why it's so discouraging, but there is hope. And I want to end on a hopeful point. This wasn't meant to be discouraging for you to say, to hell with it, it's never going to work. No, it can work. But you've got to address the elephant in the room, which is how your brain works and its need for safety and security. And the near win is its way of keeping you locked into habitual behaviors that are no longer aligned with who you want to be, clearly, because you're spending money to try to change things about yourself. So unless that's addressed, nothing else matters. If you want to learn more about it, or more importantly, if you want to address it, check out tmicglobal.com. Whole Life Architecture is the program. You will, at the end of that program, which is an ongoing program, but there's projects and there's things that you do when you're a part of it. At the end of your experience there, whenever it is, you will have defeated the near win and you will have realized the thing you wanted to create in your life, the thing you wanted to change and transform in your life. That's what I mean by after the hype program. Whole Life Architecture is after the hype when it's time to get to work. And that's the only thing that's going to actually help you realize the life that you want, whatever it may be. All right, everyone, check us out, TMIC Global, and stay tuned for more future posts. It was great chatting today.